Hi everyone, welcome to Difference Frames the World, an independent channel where you can see the world from a different angle. Today we discuss the APEC summit in Peru, one of the most important events affecting the global economy. The Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, which dates back to 3 decades ago, has 21 member states, including China, the US, Japan, Canada, and Australia, to name a few. It is an organization for trade and cooperation, but it also serves as a platform to address global issues. The organization's 21 member states account for 2/3 of the world's GDP, with 1/3 of the world's population. The 3 most influential countries in the world, Russia, China, and the United States, are all member states of the organization. APEC leaders, including Chinese President Xi Jinping and retiring US President Biden, gathered in Peru for an APEC summit. For some reason, Russian President Putin did not show up there, so Peru's president was spared the dilemma of whether to arrest him or not. What is more worth mentioning is that China, the second largest economy after the United States, contributes to 64% of APEC nations' economic growth, overwhelmingly beating the so-called largest economy. In previous videos, we compared the US and China many times and pointed out that China is the world's largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity. In 2023, the US GDP was over $27 billion and China's was slightly below $18 billion. We do not want to elaborate on the gap here, as the GDP calculation in the two countries is not apple to apple. One is a colorful balloon filled with hot air, while another is like a jar of orange juice. Chinese President Xi Jinping, the so-called dictator the outgoing US President Joe Biden referred to, was quite happy to see Latin America, the backyard of the United States, open its door widely to China. Take Peru as an example. Since it joined APEC in 1998, the country has maintained a close relationship with Beijing. President Xi Jinping unveiled the megaport of Shanghai, a $1.3 billion project mainly owned by the Chinese shipping giant COSCO, turning Shanghai, the remote fishing town, into a significant node of the global economy. The completion of Shanghai port is a historic milestone in Peru's economic development, and many media reported that Shanghai port is a key project of the Belt and Road Initiative jointly built by China and Peru. After the port is in use, the one-way shipping time between China and Peru will be shortened to 23 days, saving more than 20% of logistics costs, and creating more than 8,000 direct jobs for Peru each year. China has not only become Peru's largest trading partner, but it has also become the driving force and propeller of Asia-Pacific regional cooperation. Beijing is the largest trading partner of 13 APEC economies, contributing 64.2% to Asia-Pacific economic growth. To date, the China Development Bank has provided approximately $160 billion in investment and financing support to 21 countries and more than 250 projects in Latin America, effectively promoting the economic and social development of those countries. In a video uploaded 3 years ago, we discussed the importance of China's investment in Africa, pointing out that China's hard-earned US dollar could devastate the Chinese economy if not invested abroad. Nowadays, China continues to invest in projects in over 100 countries worldwide, and its Belt and Road Initiative has greatly boosted the global economy. In recent years, the Chinese have committed to deepening their diplomatic relations with South American countries by promoting multilateralism and cooperation in international forums. Through high-level visits and bilateral agreements, China has committed to promoting sustainable development and regional stability in South America. Political analysts say that cooperation with China will be the key to Latin America's move towards a new stage of manufacturing and technological development, and it will enable the region to reappear on the international stage as an important trading region. It is noteworthy that some countries in Latin America, like Brazil and Argentina, used to be prosperous many decades ago before the dollar hegemony destroyed their economies in the lost decade, the 1980s. Cooperation with China and other APEC members will give the region a new window to revive its economy in the coming years. Leaders and other representatives held closed-door discussions after a welcome address by Peru's President Dina Boluarte. The Peru summit aimed to promote inclusive growth and reduce informal labor in APEC economies. Our objective is to level the playing field, providing all the necessary tools for inclusion in social, financial, and commercial spaces, Boluart said. We are convinced that growth starts with inclusion, and that this is only possible through the empowerment of the citizenry that is the motor of our economies. When Peru's leader was under the global spotlight because of the APEC summit, Joe Biden became one of the world's least popular presidents, as he was overshadowed by his Chinese counterpart, President Xi Jinping, and his successor, the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. The APEC summit in Lima is one of Biden's last global summits, although not the very last one, before leaving the White House permanently. Still, the White House officials, most of whom, if not all, will also leave the office shortly, insist that his attendance at the APEC summit and his subsequent visit to Brazil for the G20 meeting will be substantive, with his talks to focus on climate issues, global infrastructure, counter-narcotic efforts. Unfortunately, the global infrastructure can hardly become one of Joe Biden's political assets like his support to Ukraine. His famous Build Back Better proposal to boost global infrastructure to counterbalance China's Belt and Road Initiative has long become a political joke. The U.S. cannot renovate its outdated domestic infrastructure. Where can it borrow more money to better other countries' infrastructure? Many developing countries, like Vietnam, have the same or better infrastructure than the United States. As for climate change issues, even America's allies are not interested anymore. When Donald Trump, the eldest McDonald's attendant, steps again into the White House, he will likely exit the Paris Agreement again. The White House says Biden will also press his allies to support Ukraine as it tries to fend off Russia's invasion, which is also laughable because the incoming president, Donald Trump, will more likely embrace his most admired hero, Russian President Putin, forcing Ukraine to give up land for peace. With his diminishing power, Joe Biden could do nothing now or exert any influence on any country. Even Japan and South Korea are eager to please Donald Trump. Still, he tried to show his leadership. At a side meeting, Biden said, "This is likely to be my last trilateral meeting with this important group. But I'm proud to have helped be one of the parts of building this partnership, and I think it's built to last. That's my hope and expectation. I truly believe cooperation of our countries will be the foundation to peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific for many years to come," Biden said. The successfully re-elected Japanese Prime Minister after his 8-day first term, Ishiba, was equally polite, responding through an interpreter, "I look forward to furthering our partnership in response against North Korea and many other areas." Regrettably, he did not say he would look forward to working with Joe Biden again or furthering any private friendship. It is a bit ironic that the U.S. and Japan, both launched numerous wars against other countries in history, claim to lay a foundation for peace and stability in the so-called Indo-Pacific region. South Korea, having a century-long enmity with Japan, can hardly maintain a close relationship with Tokyo despite Joe Biden's efforts to let them make friends. The so-called America-Japan-South Korea alliance is not solid enough to counterbalance China's growing influence in the Asia-Pacific region. Undoubtedly, China outshines the U.S. and its allies at the APEC summit. President Xi Jinping started his visit to Peru on November 12 by unveiling the $1.3 billion megaport of Shanghai. It signals China has built a fire in America's backyard. The Chinese leader was also reported by Western media to alienate Japan and South Korea from the United States through talks with their leaders. He emphasized to the South Korean leader the importance of neighborliness and shared cultural ties, advocating for closer connections through high-level engagements and people-to-people interactions, as China's state media outlet, CGTN, reported. He said the two countries, China and South Korea, should collaborate to safeguard the international free trade system and maintain the stability of global supply chains, especially as Beijing prepares for potential challenges from the incoming Trump administration, which has threatened to impose tariffs of 60% on all Chinese goods. It is noteworthy that Beijing allows South Korean citizens to travel to China visa-free for up to half a month, which analysts say is a move to counter the alliance between the U.S., Japan, and South Korea. The Chinese president also held his first-ever meeting with the new Japanese Prime Minister, Ishiba, reaffirming cooperation toward building stable and constructive relations between Beijing and Tokyo. Ishiba reportedly expressed his concerns about escalating Chinese military activities near Japan, and he also showed his willingness to visit China. However, nothing substantial was decided. In the past 1,000 years, Japan attacked China many times, killing millions. After the Second World War, it closely followed the United States to corner China, so the relations between China and Japan were tense and fragile. Although China is not belligerent, and it has not invaded any country in the past centuries, the US and its allies keep exaggerating the so-called China threat. American warships cross the Taiwan Strait several times a year to protect the so-called navigation freedom thousands of miles away from its homeland. Recently, it coerced many of its allies to do the same. On September 26, a Japanese destroyer, JS Sazanami, DD-113, sailed south through the Taiwan Strait, accompanied by Australian and New Zealand warships. New Zealand lost a warship shortly, 11 days after it followed Japan and Australia to trespass the Taiwan Strait for the first time in history. A Japanese minesweeper, JS Okashima, MSC 686, also capsized on November 11, 2024, 45 days after the Japanese sailed its warship unprecedentedly through the Taiwan Strait. Some people who believe in the principle of karma wonder whether something miserable will happen to the Australian Navy. Hopefully, nothing bad will happen, as kangaroos are so lovely, my gosh. Thanks for watching our videos, and please subscribe to our channel if you have not done that so you will not miss our uploads every day. Like, forward and share our videos with your friends, helping DFTW become a club with 1 million subscribers shortly. Thanks again.